I can see this girl's dreams. Oceans. Oceans as far as the eye can see. They are vast seas. None can swim across them. They yield no fish to catch. Yes, surely you are the hero of time reborn. My country lay within a vast desert. When the sun rose in the sky, a burning wind punished the land, searing the world, and when the moon climbed into the dark of night, a frigid gale pierced our homes. No matter when it came, the wind carried the same thing: death. But the wind that blew across the green fields of Hyrule brought something other than suffering and ruin. I coveted that wind.
Welcome to Podtendo's Legend of Zelda Wind Waker Retrospective. Over the next few episodes, we're going to be doing a deep dive into thematical elements, looking at the gameplay, and discussing the characters from Nintendo's masterpiece. If you haven't played this game before, or if it's just been a while, we do recommend that you pick up a copy to experience the journey with us.
Hey guys, welcome back to the final installment of the Legend of Zelda Wind Waker Retrospective, brought to you by Podtendo. I'm your co-host Mick, and I'm joined every episode by my lovely and talented co-host
Tyson.
Cool, awesome. So, survived this epic journey through the Great Sea, did you?
Yes, had an adventure or two. It was a good time. It's a good time. Lots of sailing.
Yeah, a lot of beautiful ocean. It's terrible. What a terrible way to spend your time playing this fun adventure. With that, I guess, yeah, let's get into this. So welcome to Podtendo's Legend of Zelda Wind Waker Retrospective. There you go. That sounds better. I knew saying whatever I said off the top didn't sound right, but there we go. We are going to do a diving into the thematical elements, gameplay, game design, and reliving this polarizing take on the Legend of Zelda. We're going to spoil the adventure, so if you haven't experienced this game for yourself, or if it's just been a while, please go play it for yourself before continuing, or play along with us over the course of the next few months. But we're done. So if you didn't, well, sucks. You can always find us in the future, though. That's the beauty of podcasts. It's evergreen. In our last episode, we looked at the game controls, discussed the adventure from the frozen Hyrule Castle under the Great Sea to the beginning of the Triforce Hunt. Today, we finished looking at a few Easter eggs that I dug up. Today, we're going to talk about some side quests, finish up with the adventure, and finish with a discussion on the story that was told, and the story that remains hidden in the subtext of the game. Oof, those are some bold... I don't even think I finished my cultural significance notes, so we'll see what happens. Hopefully,
we'll see what happens.
Yeah.
But we're kind of Zelda experts at this point. We've played a lot of them, know a lot of the stories, watched a lot of YouTube videos, so yeah.
I also don't think this is going to be the end of our Wind Waker. So when we finished Ocarina, we finished Majora's Mask in the past, we said, stamp it. Final Fantasy VII, we'll never come back to this franchise. Boom, stamp it. We might be looking at this game again with the release of the HD Switch release this summer, right? So in a couple months, we might be back and talking, and maybe we even look at it next year. I don't know. But that's why I'm not too concerned. I'm like, we'll leave this inconclusive, just like the game developers did. They didn't have all the time to finish it. Neither do us. Poof. It's like poetry. It rhymes. The retrospectives and the game development cycle. It's all the same. The game today is, of course, The Legend of Zelda Wind Waker. It was developed by Nintendo EAD. It sold 4.6 million copies. It was released March 24th, 2003. How Long to Beat has this game at 29 hours. And on eBay, you can get a copy of this game for about $100.
Yeah, but maybe hold off, kids. Maybe hold off. Those prices tend to drop when an HD version comes out. So
yeah, very, very true.
Maybe hold off.
Yeah, that was one of those things. Had I made a big purchase before this, I would have been disappointed. Because 4 weeks into our project of doing this show, Nintendo's like, "Hey guys, here's the HD release," and I'm like, "Why didn't you tell us that 5 weeks ago? We could have just delayed this to the summer." Switched course. But no, alas, we've been on this course, and we're giving you content before it comes out. So kind of as a primer for the release of the game this summer, so getting back into it, we're here for you. What we're going to do today is we're going to start with looking at the side quests of this game. So I've wrote out all the side quests. We're going to talk about that before getting back into the level notes and kind of just finishing up the game. we're having a little discussion on the lore. So side quests. There's lots of side quests going on in this bad boy. I've got them broken down into a couple little categories. So the first one is bottles. Sailing around the ocean, need bottles, especially playing on hero mode, where there are no restorative hearts given to you at any point. So all you can use is fairies and red chew potions, or blue potions, I guess, if you get that far, to restore your health. So bottles are important. Did you get all 4 bottles in the game?
I think so. I feel like I only had 3 for the longest time.
Yeah, that was me too. Because you get one from Medley. So as part of the storyline after Dragon Roost Island, you should have one. You get one in a submarine just south of Dragon Roost on your way to, what's it called? The Great Island. No, the Forest Haven. You should be able to find another submarine. So at the end of the little dungeon, get one of those. There's a beetle somewhere on like the northwest portion of the map, just kind of south or west of Windfall. You can buy one from a beetle. And then finally, if you stop the girl from stopping the shop girl from being a thief, she rewards you with the 4th and final bottle.
Yeah. Okay, it makes sense why I felt like I only had 3 for the longest time.
Yeah, I was gonna say, I was like, did you do the side quests at the end like I did? Because that's where you got the 4th one. Yeah.
Yep, very much so. I was like, I'm gonna, due to time constraints and trying to keep up with the pace of playing too many games and also playing too many games personally. It's side quests took a back burner on this one, and oh boy, did I have a lot of side quests at the end of this. So.
Just things you missed. So then pieces of heart. So there are 44 pieces of heart scattered across the Great Sea. If you can do math, that means there's 11. So 4 heart pieces make a heart. So that means there's 11 heart containers just via heart pieces in this game. So you start with 3 minus the 11. That means there's only 6 heart pieces you get via dungeons. Is that right? I think there's only like 4 dungeons. So where do the other 2 heart pieces come?
Where do they come from? I don't have a list in front of me, but I know there's a couple differences between the HD version and the GameCube version. Okay. Where maybe let's get into it. The one lady that you have to give a lot of all those joy pendants to.
Yes.
In my version, after I give her all of them, I just get the little mask.
Oh, sure. Oh, no. I don't know what it is. Hero Charm.
Yes, the Hero Charm. And then in the HD version, I think, what do? You have to go to the bottom of that big old...
Don't you worry. I got it written down in the notes. Just trust the notes.
Okay. I won't worry about
guess. We don't have to guess here. We have it all written down.
Yes. Somebody was taking notes while playing this, and other people might have been listening to podcasts.
There you go. Just in terms of that, I think you do get a heart piece after fighting maybe rescuing the girls from like the Forbidden Fortress on one of the attempts. So you might get a heart piece there. There might be like a mini boss that pops out one. I'm not sure about the other one, but essentially there should be another heart vessel that we're not considering.
Do you buy it from that beetle that sells the bottle?
I think he just sells a heart piece.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I don't think it's a full heart vessel. So I'm not entirely sure where the other one is, but maybe it'll pop up at some point. Great Fairy upgrade. So there are 4 of these. You can upgrade your bombs from, I think you get like 30, maybe start with 10 bombs, then you go from 30 up to 99, and then same with arrows, you start with 30, go to 60, and then finish with 99. So after you get the bombs, I think you need the Skull Hammer. You can travel around, check out all the fairy fountains, and upgrade all your items, as well as I believe you can get a bigger wallet.
Yes, and you'll want the max amount of bombs that you can hold for battling ships, which we haven't really talked about. Is the ship combat, because there's not really a ton of it. Essentially, there's so often you just come across like a
gunship, and you have to blow it up.
Bombs.
With bombs. Speaking of that too, just in terms of other combat, there are some big Octoroks. There are 3 to 4 on the map, and if you fight them, they get you various things. So from unlocking a fairy, which I think that's how you increase your magic, to I don't know, what else do they have? I don't know. Are they just upgrades?
Must be.
Big Octorok. What game are we playing? Wind. Yeah, let's find out. Big Octoroks. And yeah, it looks like there are 4. They provide 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Wow. And it doesn't show exactly what they have right at the start, so let's waste lots of time. Oh, 4-eyed. 1 gives you the fairy upgrade. 100 rupees and piece of heart. Cool.
Oh, okay.
All right, so nothing special. Why did I overlook them? That's why.
Yeah, because they're nothing special. And I find that with a lot of the side quests.
Yeah.
Like, I'm not a person who plays a Zelda game and I get every piece of heart. Usually I'm like, if I find it or it's convenient, I will grab it. I will not kind of go to my way to go hunting for those hearts.
I'm a 15 kind of guy. Like 15 out of 20. If I get to that point in the Zelda game, I'm like, yep, I can beat this game. Let's go. I don't need those 5 extra bits of damage I probably won't take. So let's make this boss harder.
With lots of bottles and fairies and this game's not super hard. And by the end of it, you just kind of start one-shotting things, which is so satisfying.
Very true. Next up, we have Zidari's Trading Quest. So the little guy who runs the shop on Windfall Island later on in the game. I don't know when it exactly is unlocked, but I know later on in the game you can get flowers, and you can sell flowers all over the ocean. What this requires is you going and checking out on the 3 Goron merchants throughout the sea, seeing which one gives you the best price for the flower. You do it in a certain sequence, and you unlock the magical armor. And I've heard, man, this game's annoying, or this side quest's annoying, and you have to go and check with each Goron. Nope. Just follow a walkthrough. They say, go to Forest Haven, and then go to Great Fish Island, then go to Mother-Daughter Island. Oh, and you've unlocked it. That's it. That's all you got to do. Very simple, worth it. If you're playing the HD release, I had about 3,000 rupees towards the end of the game. Threw on my magical armor that every time you get hit, you just lose some rupees. And I was basically invincible. And I still left the game with like over 1,000 rupees, right? So,
yeah.
Not one of those things like you shouldn't be afraid to get into this. It's not like building up your shield crafting or something in Skyrim. It takes maybe 15 minutes with a guide.
Yeah, well, I could see if you went out of order, it'd be really frustrating.
Sure.
But we live in the age of like guides are very readily available. If you don't want to waste time, don't waste time.
Oh.
Follow a guide.
That's it. Go to like zeldadungeon.net where they have all the nice pictures and walkthroughs, and they show you exactly where to go.
Sometimes they even have arrows like do this, then that. It's like it's so simple.
Very, very simple. Cool. So on to the Cabana Deed Quest. So here you have to talk to the town gang. You have to talk to the teacher, play hide and seek with the gang, and maybe need some butterfly tokens. Doing this gives you the Cabana Deed.
Yep. Give some tokens to the lady, and she's like, yeah, have my house. You're like, how valuable are these tokens? They're willing to just give me a house.
Like they give her lots of joy, I guess. I don't know. Who would have thought?
Yep.
Yeah.
Kind of crazy. Crazy.
Very, very crazy.
But maybe she doesn't have a boat, so she doesn't need it.
True. Yeah. I mean, how do you get across the sea, I guess, without a boat?
No, I did not name the other boats that we see in this, besides Beetle.
The submarine people.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, they should have more just boats cruising around that you could check out and see people. But the Great Sea also isn't great for fishing, and it's rough for traveling. So I think that's why we don't see a lot of seafaring people, because it is rough going.
Yeah,
right? For some reason.
It's very it's not very forgiving.
No,
it's quite a hostile place.
Other ones you could be wanting to do is all the Kokoro tree spirits. So all over the Great Sea, these little guys are trying to plant seeds. You have to go to the Forest Haven, collect water, whatever it's called, Deku water. Head there in a certain amount of time, plant the trees, and the little guys case, hey, thank you. Doing all this gets you 1 heart piece.
Yeah, this might have been a side quest I skipped entirely.
Oh, I saw. I was like, hey, what do you get? You get a cool upgrade. You get a sweet tattoo on your arm. 1 heart piece, and I was like, no, that's definitely not worth my time.
Yeah. I got stuff to do, my friends.
Mm-hmm. Similar to the deluxe Picto Box. So at some point, there's a little island that you get the Picto Box. You can take pictures, and I believe you get little unlockables, little collectibles. I don't even think there's a reward for doing all of this, other than you can look at all the little figurines. So as somebody who really wants to dive into this game, take in every little piece that the development kind of team put together, and look at all that, take it in, digest it. This is also a skippable one. I don't even think I've ever done a picture, let alone try and complete.
Well, I was going to do this, but then it's like, man, what a hassle. And then at the same time, it's like a lot of these things are missable. You can only get once. There's no real value out of it.
Yeah.
And the film, you get hey, here's 5 pictures. It's like, oh no thank you, oh no thank you. So and there's times where like you can even be like super close to, like, you're too close, it's not in the right frame, it's not going to register, it's bullshit. So it's like, no, I'm not doing this.
Yep, no, that seems like one of those ones. Tingle/Knuckles. Knuckle is Tingle's little brother. Challenge, which is on the GameCube only. So by plugging in the Tingle tuner, I'm not sure if you needed a copy of Four Swords or A Link to the Past or something to make this register, but there was little challenges you could do to get you little rewards. Were they anything special? No, not at all.
Yeah. More filler.
Okay. From the auction house, though, where you get the sale originally, in the HD release, they do have the fast sale and a heart piece, and that's about it. There's some C charts, but C charts just get you money.
Yeah, and you don't need money in this game.
Yeah.
You get so much of it.
Yeah, like if you did need to grind out some money, you get at least $50 a pop, if not more. So doing a couple C charts, there's probably 49 of them, I'm guessing, 7x7-ish, if not more. You could do that, and that would give you, okay, let's do some rough math here. 29 times 50, approximately like $2,400 if you were to kind of blast through them all. But there's also so many glowing dots all over the sea, you could just grab random 50 glowing dots and probably make the cash. So
well, and you don't really need the money for a
lot
of
people
things.
Complain about this. I'm like, how many people just didn't do the crane game on the ocean? Because 50 of them, there's tons. Like, there's one little island, it's like Shark Island. Off one of the tips, there's like 7 or 8 glowing dots in a row. You can just like literally drift around and collect a bunch and like blast out all these, what's that, $800? I'm like, do people not do this when they play this game? Like, they're just like too fast. Like, I gotta get through the sea segment. I'm like, no. When you're cruising around the sea, you're supposed to stop and like collect items, do the little challenges. It's part of the gameplay.
Yeah. It's silly that why some people just like, or also like, let's say you find a bunch of bottles that have money in it, you could just like reset the day or like and all of a sudden move it to like nighttime, and then boom, all of a sudden all those bottles are back, and clear them all out and do it again, set it today. It's like, it's so easy to farm in this game. It's not like I do like the auction house mechanic.
Yeah, sure.
Though, of like, you bet a certain like thing, you bet over like 12 or 13 or 15, and everybody goes, oh, and gets all like stun locked.
Yeah.
And that's kind of how you're supposed to do it. So it's cool. I feel like I never understood that the first time, but once I learned that little mechanic, you're like, oh, it's cool. It's fun. Like, this is actually the most enjoyable like auction mini game that I've played
in a while. Awesome. Sweet. From there, the 3 things left. We've got the submarines. There are 7 in the game. You get 2 heart pieces, 1 bottle, 3 treasure charts, and a platform chart. So if you had a guide, you could just dial in, I want 2 heart pieces, I want a bottle, move on with my life, and you'd be good. Usually they have a little bit of combat involved, right? So you go in, they're like little mini dungeons. Neat, cute.
Yeah, super quick, but nothing too special.
Sweet. On Windfall Island, we do have an area called the Savage Labyrinth. So kind of above our house, there's a big headstone, and you get the iron bangles. You can pick it up, throw it, jump in it. 50-floor dungeon. In the GameCube, you get a piece of heart for completing this area. And you're like, ugh, man. But in the Wii U, this is where you get the Hero Charm, which reveals enemies' health bars.
Yep.
Awesome. Sweet. And then finally, Nintendo Gallery. I don't know what that is. I didn't include anything, but it's there.
I think that's tied in with the Picto Box. Like,
okay.
The reward of the Picto Box is going to the Nintendo Gallery and seeing all the little figures. Maybe that's what that's called.
Sure.
That would be my guess.
Sure. Okay, cool. Awesome. So that wraps up all our side quests. In terms of that, like individual islands, I think we'll talk about those kind of afterwards. But I think the only one that I know that exists is there's like an island that has an obstacle course where you can use the wind and your Deku Leaf to like fly through it for a heart piece. That was like kind of the only other side quest mini game in this game that like I'm like, oh yeah.
Yeah. I don't really feel rewarded by getting heart pieces in this game. I find like in other Zelda games, like a heart piece is like, ooh, a heart piece. But because these pieces are just so everywhere, I just don't feel motivated to go get them.
Mm-hmm. Well, in other Zelda games, I think that's what it is. It does seem like an abundance. If you went from 44 to say 24, I could knock out 24 of these pieces. Sure, why not? Right?
Oh, definitely. And if like then it's like, because there's less of them, it's kind of a little bit more rewarding. Mm-hmm. But to go through all the like the Kakarot tree spirits, and just to get one heart piece
Mm-hmm.
is silly when you could just go to like Beetle and buy that heart piece for some coin. And it's like one of these things is not like the other.
Yeah, I agree. It does seem a little bit uneven as opposed to other games in the past, and it doesn't have that cathartic fishing experience, right? In this game, I never knew anyone that sat and like played this game for hours and hours or had that mini game. You might be playing the squid, what's it called, Battleship Squid game, right, with the Splash guy, because it's difficult. I actually knocked it out this time. I gave myself like 4 or 5 attempts, and I think I hit it on like my 3rd attempt, and I got the heart piece from that game, and I was like, sweet. Because I have seen some other people complaining that it's one of those games where because it is just so random, you could play it for hours and never finish it. So.
Yeah, I could see that.
Yeah.
I could see that. Well, also like 50 floor dungeon that progressively gets harder for a piece. It's like, skip this.
Yeah. Although that's like oddly, I don't know when that started. It was definitely around this time when they're like, aha, look at this giant dungeon. Because I feel like Paper Mario Thousand Year Door has one of those at the end. They have like a vicious gauntlet. And
I always remember Onimusha too.
Oh yeah, Onimusha. Yeah, and it's like, but you can get the best sword. And I'm like, I have to grind this out. I just have to.
Yeah. So you just like put yourself through hell, and you're like, this sword isn't that much better.
Yeah.
What was the Paper Mario grind about?
I don't know. You get a badge. I'm guessing you get a badge.
No. Yeah, that's always the. I was
gonna say, do we care? Paper Mario.
No, you're probably right. It's probably a badge.
Door, like 100 trials. Pit of 100 trials. What do you think the reward is?
2 badges.
Prizes. You get so floor 100 makes direct attackers take half the damage they do to Mario. Odd number attackers are rounded down, except one which is rounded up, and it requires 7 badge points.
Yeah, the half damage seems okay.
So if they do 5 damage to you, they take 3 back.
Okay.
Yeah. So like they hit you with 10, you get 5.
Yeah.
Okay. Cool. Awesome.
That's interesting.
All right. Sweet. Good old upgrades at the end. Good times. Good game design, folks. We did it.
Mm-hmm.
We made our games look better, and we made these annoying things. They all came out around the same time. Interesting. But with that ends our side quest of Wind Waker. We're going to look at the level notes and just kind of the final couple hours of gameplay, talk about some of the mysterious areas of the Great Sea, and end with a cultural significance, and then we're out of here. So, starting off, we ended, I think we had wakened the second sage. We were sailing the Great Sea. Our Master Sword was fully powered up. All we had to do was collect the 8 Triforce pieces that were scattered across the Great Sea, and we're done. So, to fully power up, we must first find the 8, yes, I know, the great Triforce pieces that are scattered across the Great Sea. In the Wii U version, there are 3 charts that you will find, and then the rest, and then get deciphered by Tingle. Interesting. So Tingle's Incredible Charts is going to cost you 201 rupees. You'll need to find 3 charts on the Isle of Steel, Bird's Rock Peak, and Needle Rock Island. Each chart costs $398. That's a total of 1,196 rupees in the HD version and 3,184 rupees in the GameCube version. Okay. I always heard that this talked about as a negative. Playing this game, I was playing it pretty fast, and I was walking around with over $4,000 in my pocket at the end of the game. So it doesn't really seem like it's that unmanageable. Unless you're playing the game really poorly, you're not doing any exploring, and you're wasting your money on stuff. It's definitely not as big as an obstacle as it's as it's been talked about in the past. Did you have a super major issue with the Triforce hunt?
No, like, and honestly, there's so much. Like, the only hurdle is getting your wallet upgrade. Like, once your wallet upgrade to like the 900 or 9,999, it's like there's so many times where I was going to Bloody Beetle just to like spend every penny I had, because I was like, man, I have too much money. Every time I like, people, they're just throwing coins at you. Like, you're like, oh hey, you open this, here's 50. You open another, here's 50. Here's the silver coin. Why not? It's like they just throw money at you, and I get it, because like they have some mechanics where you need that, or you need money to like progress. But yeah, they throw money at you. I never was broke in this game once. I, in fact, was like went out of my way to spend money.
Yeah, and that's true. And you do get with Beetles, there's like points or something, membership points. So if you spend $300 or something, buy 30 items, you get an upgrade, and there's 60. So Again, if you explore, I think you should be okay. It's definitely one of the criticisms. Yeah, it's a little bit slower, but it's supposed to be an exploration game, and you're supposed to be on a sea, and you're supposed to have fun with it. And I guess if you don't like that mechanic and you find it boring, yeah, it's gonna be a boring game. But it's kind of part of the adventure, right? You want to relive your childhood, pretend like you're on Animal Treasure Island, going around in your little red ship, fighting with barrels and pigs. Good times.
Getting held up at gunpoint constantly.
Yeah, that's kind of the point. So one area, I guess, that involves a boat that you kind of have to stop is the ghost ship. So the final piece of the Triforce is located here. So once you find a map in the ship graveyard on Diamond Steep Isle, you can find the location of the ghost ship. Use the moon chart to enter the ship. Complete the combat challenge, and you are rewarded with a piece of the Triforce.
Yeah, very cool little location. Mm-hmm. And I mean, one of the few actual ships we see.
Yes, one of two. It looks actually similar to the Tetra's Pirates ship. Kind of weird.
Yeah,
almost like it's some old ancient Hylian royal family vessel protecting a Triforce piece.
Could be.
Maybe that's where they got all their money from. Is the royal family funded these pirates? Shit, that's a conspiracy theory we got going on.
100%. It's almost like these pirates were descendants of royalty.
They literally, yes. I think that's like the point.
That's the intention.
Yeah. Okay. Cool.
Yeah.
All right. Sweet. So with that, though, we're now equipped with our fully powered Master Sword. We have our Triforce of Courage in hand. We can now enter Ganon's Tower. So with the Triforce complete, we re-enter the sunken Hyrule Castle. We find our statue in ruin, Zelda disappearing, and we chase after her. We fight through the Hyrule countryside and discover the entrance to Ganon's Tower. Inside the main room consists of 4 branching path that contains a puzzle room based on the 4 dungeons that we've completed in this game, and a boss rematch. Oh boy.
Yeah. Boss rush time. This is such a tease to be like, look at this cool whole other area you can explore, and there's nothing to explore.
One little path and a cave, and you're like, well,
yeah, but you're like, I can't wait to go running over those hills. Mm-hmm. Like, this isn't Breath of the Wild or Tears of the Kingdom. I can't do that yet.
Yeah, kind of a little. It's like kind of neat. It's just a tip, just a taste, but ultimately a little unsatisfying. I did find that fighting
makes you wonder, like, what if they had the time and the resources and the hardware to kind of push it?
Where were they going to take this? How far would they have gone? Right? Yeah. Could we have explored? Was Hyrule going to have more dungeons in it? Right? Maybe.
Yeah, or like maybe there's going to be some stuff underneath the sea. Mm-hmm. And we kind of get like a beta Tears of the Kingdom with like different layers to explore, and maybe you do something underneath and that affects something up top. And
yeah, it's
who knows?
Be kind of fun. Although, be kind of a neat idea if like the next Zelda game was that, right? The Great Sea in Hyrule, Evil Power, like kind of releases a second layer that you can explore. Okay, cool, interesting.
I think so. And then you would like. And as you progress the game, you would actually affect like the terrain, like the water level or whatever, or certain areas would be more accessible. Like, yeah, I think it'd be fun.
Well, based on how this game goes, Nintendo definitely wants to like honor the legacy of this game and like stick in this world. So I could see that happening. That's 4 boss fights. They go by pretty quickly, especially with the powered up Master Sword. You feel more powerful. I forget who I fought first. Maybe it was the or the Forest Haven boss, that like plant guy. He went down like really quickly. It was like only a couple hits, and like I was watching his health bar just like drain. I think it was twice, and I was like, oh, I'm much stronger. I was like, cool, neat. This is the point of a boss rush, to make you feel more powerful.
Yeah, and because you are so much more powerful, it's like so easy.
Yeah, maybe the sandworm, moldworm, or whatever, gave me a little bit more of a challenge, just because your sword is a little bit more OP by the time you get there, so it's not as simple. But for the most part, yeah, it's relatively easy.
Yep. But it's cool to like revisit these bosses and with the actual like you can see their health bars and you got your badass weapons and yeah, it's good times.
Sweet. Afterwards, you were tasked at solving a boomerang puzzle. You have to jump into a dark hole and have a rematch with Phantom Ganon in a series of rooms. And each time you defeat him, his sword hilt stops. It'll point in the direction where you're supposed to go. Defeat him several times, head back upstairs, one more time to defeat him, playing your Shadow Tennis, and you get access to the boss room.
Yep. Got to pick up his sword and smack the one wall and proceed. Like, very cool that there's still that whole mechanic of like picking up an enemy's weapon is still kind of here. They don't really use it too much, but I like that they haven't dropped it. It's,
yeah, and you're right. This was a great use of, hey, this is a mechanic you've been using the whole game. What if it was the key to this dungeon, right? And I was like, oh, I can respect that. That's kind of cool. Sure.
Yeah. So you kind of like learned the key by using your skills.
Well, and everything, even just the sword dropping, right? It took me a couple rooms on this one where I was just like defeating him, running to the next room, fighting him, and I was like, wait, no, I'm missing something. And I'd be picking up his sword before I noticed which door it pointed at because I was so excited. I think that's what happened. And I was like, damn my childish excitement.
Yep. Well, and it's like subtle things where you don't pick up on it. And if you aren't like following a walkthrough like word by word and kind of just like, yeah, it's neat. It's a clever way of doing things. And I like that it's just in a very engaging little little dungeon with like lots of different bosses and it's lots of variety. I find this one flew by. This it gives you all the like,
combat. It gives you lots of combats and lots of adventure and lots of kind of challenge, but it doesn't have like the big open endless rooms to explore, right? So like, you kind of lose. You get a little bit more combat, a little bit less puzzles, which at the end of the game, it's not terrible, especially since we were all over the Great Sea doing mindless running back and forth, right? So the fact they did keep that similar here at this end area, it's not bad. So we step into Ganon's chambers. We see him standing over Zelda. He soliloquizes before raising himself up to the ceiling and revealing himself as Puppet Ganon. So, boss fight. He hangs from the roof, uses boomerang to detach his strings and shoot his tails with light arrows. His second form is a snake puppet. You can use bait to lure him to certain parts of the room, and it seemed kind of less difficult. So other than him kind of throwing little bats at you once in a while, you'd kind of just stand, time with your light arrows. It's not super difficult, and you defeat him.
Yep. Pretty, and the light arrows just are so overpowered in this. I think leading up to this boss, there's like a bunch of kind of, and if you just shoot any of the common enemies, they just like get one shot. Like Darknuts, one shot. It's nuts. And then Ganon turns into his little caterpillar, which is like, is that Moldorm or what the heck it's called?
It is very similar to like the Moldorm, isn't it? I don't know. It's just kind of a weird like snake guy which rolls around on the floor.
Yeah. But I'm okay with that because you're like, this brings me back to Link to the Past.
I wonder if somewhere in Japan, like puppets, marionettes are quite popular, as well as potentially toys that like children slide on the floor.
Yes,
right?
Yes. Well, now that you mention that, I just remember that's like, I bet you that's probably exactly what it is.
Like a very common bedtime or like a toy, like a wooden toy for children. It's probably marionettes and then snake-like puppets that you can kind of make snake on the ground. So they probably took that because that's like your childhood, the comfort that is now attacking you in this fight, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So from there,
catch.
Afterwards, though, we defeat him. We're like, yeah, Ganon's up in the ceilings, and he's like, come get me. And you're like, so we have to climb up using our rope, which I think is an underused mechanic in this game. Using your grappling hook, not just to swing around, but to like be able to climb up to different levels. So it's kind of nice. Yep. We get a little bit of it at the beginning or at the end of the game, but it would have been nice to be like, this definitely should have been a mechanic that was used more. We should have had more vertical areas to climb up using different variations of this mechanic, right? So had they had more time to digest, I think we could have seen a little bit more, right? So we climb up to the roof, which then starts the final battle. Wow. So Ganon looks out over Hyrule, the sunken Hyrule, looks at the Great Sea, says some poetic things before he fights. So Ganondorf, we fight him using your sword. Zelda, using her bow and light arrows, will stun him occasionally, which opens him up for a bunch of attacks. At one point, he knocks Zelda out, which means it's just you on one-on-one. After landing a couple attacks, she recovers, and then you have to use your mirror shield to reflect the shots back at him. At a certain point, you kind of queue up like a action command, so your button kind of like blinks alerts. If you hit that, you roll around, you jump up in the air, and you deliver the final blow, which is stabbing the Master Sword straight into Ganondorf's mind.
Yep. And it's very cool. I like fighting Ganon in this. I wish he was kind of more present in this because he is such a cool character. And this is kind of like the Ganon who won, which is very neat.
Sort of.
And I like that it's kind of a reversal of like Ocarina of Time, where you fight him as a human form and then he becomes a monster, where we fought puppet form and then we fought the real guy.
Sure.
And his two-sword technique is pretty overpowered, so you kind of want to make sure you keep your distance. He's definitely a threat, and I like that he's definitely the hardest boss in the game.
Oh, certainly. And there's a certain point where, like Tyson mentioned, he has two swords and he holds them in certain patterns. And if you watch his swords, you can slice him vertically, horizontally, stab him, and always kind of get inside his shield to help you with this fight, right? So that combat we talked about a couple episodes ago, it's still there. It's just not very alluded to. It's not in the forefront because of the ease of this boss. You don't have to get super intense. Like, make sure you jab, right? That we'll see in later games when combat becomes a little bit more important. But they're definitely working on it here. It's just they haven't refined things. They didn't dedicate it. They didn't bring it up to the forefront, right? But it's there. It's working its way to the surface.
It's subtly there. Like, they're definitely incorporating those systems into the game. But they're not relying on it yet or making it like a must to proceed, which could probably just be frustrating and monotonous. I like that it's kind of, the battle is at your own style, because you're capable of beating every other boss in this game at this point. You don't need to like, oh, you have to slice him vertically here, you have to use this combo here. It's like that stuff that's fine, but I like that this is just like, no, just you with Ganondorf and Zelda helping you out, and you just kind of you take him down. You take him down. It's awesome. And then you get that little cutscene where you just like stab him in the head, and then he turns to rock, and you're like, awesome.
Yeah, great. So before this, Ganon does allude to that he wanted to bring all three of us together so that we can finally summon the Triforce. He can grant his wish, and he can finally get the Kingdom of Hyrule under his control. Before he does that, though, the King of Red Lions, the King of Hyrule, steps in, touches the Triforce first, and wishes for Hyrule to actually be washed away. So the horrors of this past ancient kingdom that kind of leads Ganon to it, that keeps his heart tied to it, is going to be washed, sunk under the Great Sea for once and all. We see after the fight, Zelda and Link both be wrapped in bubbles, float up to the top of the Great Sea, where they're met with the Prince guy, the pirates, and that's it. We see some credits, and then we watched Link leave Outset Island, saying goodbye to his sister and his grandmother, and joining the pirates, looking for the next Hyrule.
Yeah. And Zelda turns back to her Tetra form. Yeah. So.
I mean, it'd be weird for her to just be like, oh, I'm Princess Zelda. We're like, we live in an ocean. What?
Yes.
Yeah.
Well, also, it's just like all those pirates would be like, who's this lady? Yeah. How are you, Tetra?
You'd have a real Vegeta thing going around. It's like, I am the prince of this planet that doesn't exist. No one cares.
Yep.
Okay.
In fact, nobody that you mentioned this to has even heard of this place.
Yeah, it's almost like it was just made up in the last 25 episodes of the show.
Basically.
You weren't an alien before this, Goku. Let's be real.
No, he's a
little monkey boy. Come on. All right. So that is the ending. Kid. That is the end of Wind Waker. Kind of fun overall. Yeah, not a bad experience. I think it's, as we talked to, it does leave you with a little bit wanting more, right? It'd be nice if there was a little bit more included in this game. It feels a little bit incomplete. But overall, I think what we got, content quality-wise, that's a fine experience, no? Above average, it's pretty good. It's a great Zelda game. Yeah, it leaves you wanting more, but I don't know, this is definitely one of those games you can come back to and knock out in a couple days, right? Is it much longer than Ocarina of Time? Or Majora's Mask? Not really.
No. Quick, sweet. I mean, I guess some people could complain that, the sailing takes forever. It's like, yeah, but in the HD, there's even fast sail.
Yeah. Oh, fast sail does make a huge difference, unless you're playing on an emulator where you have some type of speed modifier. It does. It changes it. The fact the wind is at your back the whole time, so anytime you're pointing forward, you're just going at the top fast or the top speed, plus your warp points. It's there. It exists. If you really hate this game and you don't want to play it because maybe you have to sail across the ocean, this beautiful ocean for 2 minutes, okay.
Yeah.
Are you also using fast travel points constantly in Skyrim? Well, why don't you walk across that big boring world? Oh, because it's boring to walk over the mountains? Huh. Weird. But yeah, you're right.
Yeah.
The Great Sea is terrible. We should criticize this game and like ostracize it based on this one mechanic. Okay, yeah, cool.
Yeah, yeah. And I think if you haven't picked this game up after listening to our podcast, which is you should have played this game.
Mm-hmm.
No, that's fine. It's good. It's super fun. I think that this is a really underrated Zelda game. It hits way above its weight. It's doing a lot of interesting things. Now that like we have Breath of the Wild and Tears of the Kingdom, going back and replaying this, you're like, my God, they really just love. They were trying to take a lot of ideas from here, eh? Because this game was super experimental, and I appreciate that. And it was super ambitious. Sure, they didn't have a lot of time, so some of the content got cut, and that's kind of my only miff. Is just like I wish they would have just had unlimited time and really gone with it, because I think that we really could have got like a Breath of the Wild, Tears of the Kingdom kind of 0.5 or whatever, or like beta to
I'm
it.
okay with that. I'm okay. You know what, games? There's history in it, right? Let's grow from it. Let's learn from it. It's just going to be that little bit of like what could have been, right? What really the things they wanted to include. You could have brought back the original development team, Nintendo. You could have had them spend a couple more hours, and you could have actually probably built some dungeons, right? All of a sudden, Great Fish Island maybe has a little mini dungeon. Maybe there's another little segment, right? Maybe you have time to release this. Maybe releasing Wind Waker HD Definitive Edition with like 2 new dungeons, right? Maybe change up some of the story text. Maybe clean up some of those things. Why couldn't they have done that? Like, you're telling me that a developer, a professional video game developer that gets paid a salary, couldn't just go back and like add extra things to this Wind Waker, and all of a sudden, hey, selling it for $80 makes sense, because it's not just a game that exists that I could go buy on the secondary market, or maybe I already have in my collection. It's an actual new experience. It's an updated version. It doesn't have to change anything. You just add more content to it. They did the same thing with Final Fantasy VII. They've completely changed that game. They've altered it. They have hours of new content based on Final Fantasy VII, and you couldn't go in and just like give us 2 more dungeons.
Yeah,
just expand.
Yeah. Well, I'm pretty sure that there's like fan mods where you can just add new stuff to it too. Like,
so fans can do this. So you're telling me that the people at Nintendo couldn't do this? So maybe one of my biggest criticisms on them just like pumping out this like HD relist on this game that could use a bit more content, right? Like, where are we going? Why don't we get a director's cut? You're telling me the original team can't come in and like alter some things? But no, we could just give you this port. We had to take a CD, press copy. Oh, it went to the disc. Okay, that's an $80 purchase. I don't know. It's one of those things. I think this game is fun. It's nice that it's being restored, I guess, in its original form in HD for the Switch this summer. But
yeah, and it's not going to be left into the unavailable past of like,
sure. But
if you've never played this game.
But could you not have original mode and then like called like director's cut mode that has more content?
I'm always a fan of more and more, but like the only other comparable would be Link's Awakening on the Switch, where we just get it's this whole like graphical upgrade, but they didn't add any content.
It's like the same game.
So I feel like that's probably what we're in store for.
Well, I don't. It's just going to be
Nintendo knows that they don't need to do all those things.
I think we're just getting the Wii U version just in HD.
Yeah, or quote unquote in HD, aka it runs on the Switch.
Yeah,
like,
right.
Thanks.
Okay, cool, awesome, great, sweet. Yeah, good job.
Could just release this in eShop for $15.
Yeah,
but no, you charged me $80. Okay, thanks.
Yeah, I'm gonna buy it because I'm stupid. Awesome. So that ends Wind Waker. So I don't know. It's one of those.
It's a sweet experience. We just wish there were more. We're fans. We like this game so much. We honestly just wish that there was more.
Oh, yeah. And I guess
great game.
Yeah, like what's my criticism?
Super satisfying.
What's my criticism? How future releases are going to be moved, and like current criticism about this game, I think is weak. I think it's one of those things where people come in and they have different expectations or whatever it is. But overall, I think it's still top-notch game. We'll find out when we do our rankings. I don't know if we do that. When we get to back to our tier ranking list, where it shows it's going to definitely be lower than I thought. I would have been championing this game as it's one of the best Zelda games ever. Going back and playing it, it's definitely not. I can see if you love it or you like it, right? But it's definitely it's a little bit more polarizing than I would have expected, right? So going back and playing it, I still hold it dear. I still like playing it. I probably will still play the HD release on my Switch this summer, right? It's one of those ones I want to get back into, even though I just played it. So I again love this game. I understand why it doesn't have the same acclaim as its predecessors or even the games that came before it, right? So
yeah, and it's definitely like after replaying this, I was pleasantly surprised and kind of like, oh, you know, I enjoyed my time with it, but it definitely didn't move up my rankings of Zelda games.
No, not at all. Okay, so with that though, kind of ends our review. We kind of got to say our piece. Let's check out some mysterious areas of the Great Sea, dive into a final cultural significance. Then we're gonna get out of here for now, and we probably be back talking about this game. It's not leaving our zeitgeist. We'll look at it again at some point here in the maybe next little while. Yeah, cool. So mysterious areas of the Great Sea, or maybe we never come back to it. That's the other thing. Maybe we never come back to it. So in each episode, we talk about some of the most interesting islands that we visit. We cover most of the game's big islands thus far. So let's play cleanup and discuss some of the islands of note. So I went and I blanketly went to the internet, went to the Reddits, went to the Googles, and said, interesting islands. Which islands are people talking about that we haven't discussed here? Paw Print Island. A random comment on some Zelda forum, somebody said that Paw Print Island was one of their favorite islands from this game because it was the first island they ever checked out. It's just to the east of Windfall Island. So on your way to the first time Dragon Roost, you can hit the very first island in the game potentially that you can see. There's a mini dungeon that needs a hook shot. So Paw Print Island. So random person that commented on that forum, I hear you.
Yeah, it's definitely, I liked Paw Print Island more than I like the random dice islands.
Sure. Okay. Now about Tingle Island. So an island that has a big totem pole statue at the top. I think must be a lighthouse of some sort where there are Tingle and he has a couple compadres pushing around a light, attract people, to warn people. I don't know. Lighthouse is technically just to warn you, so maybe some type of a warning that Tingle's pushing off to the Great Sea. But you can get charts, and more specifically Triforce charts, deciphered here by the little guy who loves maps, and that's it. Tingle, kind of interesting character we discussed last time. I have a theory that he's like a magical being that was in Termina, and then upon it being destroyed, he came to what was Hyrule before the flood, and created this little island for himself.
Yeah, or maybe Tingle caused the destruction.
Oh shit! Well,
just saying.
Like the evil that came back to the land was actually Tingle.
Just Tingle.
Could you?
And everybody was like, "It's Ganondorf," and Ganondorf thinks he's making all these big plays, but really it's just like Tingle's like wrecking show.
Could you imagine like a game where like Tingle, you have to escape the destruction of Termina, only to get to Hyrule, and then like you going and doing and just being Tingle actually summons like Ganon back to the land and creates the Great Flood, and you're like, oh, well maybe I'll stick around and like help the hero of time if he ever comes back, because it's kind of my fault.
While blowing bubbles.
All right.
And dancing. Like,
Zelda, Nintendo, we're giving you a lot of good ideas on this show.
Yeah. Well, you know what? If they would just give us some writer's credits, I'd be happy. Noted.
These two hack podcasters got writing credits and created two of the worst selling Zelda games of all time, and Nintendo's now bankrupt. Dun-dun-dun! Wow, that was a scary look into the future. All right. Another island that was brought up was Diamond.
I blame Tingle.
Diamond Steep Island. A diamond island that at the bottom of it has a ghost ship graveyard underneath of it. Maybe a representation of a graveyard? Shipwrecks mark a lot of graves at sea. Also one of those ones that was mentioned on a forum, and I was like, this is a stupid island. I looked into it, and I was like, oh, I forgot all about the creepy graveyards. I was like, yeah, I kind of like those. Yeah. All right, okay.
Yeah, like that's got a cool vibe to it.
Yeah.
So
sweet. How about Isle of Steel? So it's a little tiny metal fortress. Inside there is a mark of the Wind Waker? I don't know what you want to call that. Maybe the Gale of Winds. You play your Wind Waker song. You get a piece of, or a Triforce chart. So it's kind of neat. Probably built, I guess, by then some ancient Hylian people. A Hylian descendant, maybe the royal family as like a line of defense. So similar to them. I think the ghost ship is like the Hylian vessel that was sunk and killed as a sacrifice to kind of create this type of phantom way of, or like this ghost to protect the Triforce. The sim, I think, with the Island of Steel. So a more fortified fortress to protect the precious Triforce. Okay.
Yes, or maybe this was part of a bigger thing.
Yeah.
And this is just the tip that is left remaining on the top of it.
Sure, like a big fortress or something.
Yeah.
Yeah, cool. How about Link's Cabana? So you're like, awesome. We traded some pendants for this place. What's the worst that can happen? If you pull down on the ceiling, the fireplace goes out, it reveals a dungeon full of rats, a sewer, and some redeads. So why is there redeads and a sewer and a puzzle protecting a Triforce chart under this cabana? We don't know, but...
Well, now I know why this thing was such a good bargain.
There you go. So it does hide a story. So between being hidden in just kind of a discreet, remote cabana, potentially someone of money or wealth would have held this place, maybe kept it as like a little bit of a fortified fortress for himself, between the Isle of Steel and the Ghost Graveyard and the Phantom ship. The Triforce was very well hidden. So whoever was hiding this, they put a lot of stake into these kind of obscure locations, and they all kind of tie together in this like end of the time panic. How do we protect the future potentially?
So does the Miss Marie, who we got the cabana, are like the redeads her former family members, and that's why she doesn't go back to this island, because she murdered her family and left?
Oh shit. I mean, could be, if you want to think it's a little bit more. I think this is probably a bit more ancient though. We're probably looking at whatever like the Earth Dungeon was, right? Like that level of ancientness. I think the sewer system is probably before her time. She may not even have known about it.
That's fair. There is also that weird butler door.
Yeah. Again, just an extra piece of protection to prevent like random pirates or something from stumbling across this great hidden treasure.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
And then finally, also in Hyrule Historia, although I didn't find it, there is a drawing that outlines the map from Ocarina of Time. And if you look Ocarina of Time, Wind Waker map, they almost line up like scene for scene. So as we kind of awkwardly stumbled through, like, well, this is kind of like Gerudo Fortress. I'm pretty sure in Hyrule Historia, at least from the video I saw, they clearly say Forbidden Fortress is just Gerudo Fortress. Yeah. And I'm like, oh, okay, cool, awesome.
Yeah, I could see that.
Sweet.
And then when we pulled it up, it really is just like Ocarina of Time. God, it's on like a 45-degree tilt. Tilt that map 45 degrees, and
before we start recording about like an hour ago, I'm like flipping through this. And I was like, I need to find these pictures, and I'm like, I feel like at this point, if I'm doing research for this show, it's kind of moot. If we come back in the future, maybe I will go back and double check my Zelda reference books. So I have the Historia, the Encyclopedia, and the artwork book, right? So kind of going through those, maybe we can see if we can uncover some fun things from the developers and what Nintendo's considering publishable, right? So maybe we'll get kind of more of a picture podcast in the future, but that is, again, only if we come back to the Wind Waker. Until then, just have to do some research yourself, folks.
Yep.
Cool. All right.
Well, use your old Wikipedia skills.
Yeah. So we're going to end with a final cultural significance. I don't think this one was one I was building up all along, this lore talk. We'll see what happens. I've got a bunch of notes. We can kind of say our parts, and I don't know. At a certain point, it's incomplete. It's hard to look at an incomplete project and be like, wow, look at this impact and the implication. So,
yeah, it's like,
great assault.
They didn't even finish the game, let alone the backstory.
Yeah. But we'll go. And I'll give you kind of my interpretation, what I think they were going for, some of the subtext that I've kind of picked up on, and see what happens. So in this section, we're going to look at a few elements from this game with a finer magnifying glass. We have talked about the impact of the art direction of this game, the fantasy elements and storytelling. Last time, we talked about some leftover Easter eggs that I've discovered while doing research. And this week, as promised, we'll be talking about the big, juicy lore. So without taking too much time, this game was cut short due to a reduction in development time. We lost dungeons, characters, mechanics, and probably some story elements. So that's a big disclaimer. We all are aware of that. We've discussed that throughout the whole thing. Let's kind of look at what we're left with, though. So a few quotes from the opening of the game's opening. This is one of the legends of which people speak. So again, it's just one variation. Necessarily, Ocarina of Time didn't happen the way it was shown in the game. It's just a legend that lives on the winds, right? Some of these other quotes. And then a day came when a fell wind began to blow across the kingdom, and the great evil once again crept from the depths of the earth, right? So we get this illusion of wind. Wind is very important in this game, in this specific little world. It's mentioned many times, right? So
depths of the earth, though.
Depths.
That kind of Tears of the Kingdom.
Ooh. Yeah, there you go. There's some like lore, like they were going somewhere. So depth, right? Yeah, we're talking underneath the Hyrule. There was some type of potentially ancient area. What became of this kingdom? None remain who know. So we're kind of again having to do some guesses, and the memory of the kingdoms vanished, but its legend survived on the wind's breath. So twice in the opening segment, we hear about a wind, a fell wind blew on the land. This legend survived on the wind's breath. So kind of this ancient, not ancient, more of a fantasy trope of the wind kind of keeping some type of story of this area, right? So it's a very important area. So our Link being the composer of the wind, having control of the wind, controls a lot of the destiny and just narrative that this kingdom now has, right? So it's mentioned again and again and again. And I think that is important, right? Like I said, we hear wind elements, we hear wind instruments in a lot of the themes of this game. Why? I think because the wind is supposed to be really gosh darn important.
Yeah. Well, and I was just thinking of the three goddesses. What are their, like, there's the fire one, there's the earth one, and the water one. Mm-hmm. There is a missing part there when it comes to, like, think of your elements. You know, you got your wind, like, water, ancient, earth, and fire. There's wind is missing from the three divine golden goddesses. So maybe, like, the golden goddesses represent the good of the earth, or maybe, and there's, like, the winds not spoken about. I don't know. There's something there. There's this weird, and another little point that you made about the what became of this kingdom, none remain who know. And in almost every Zelda game, we come across older mystical characters that are like, oh, I know so much and I'm wise and you're certainly in for a treat. We don't really come across that in this game.
We do, but it's actually blocked from us. The ancient Hylian text that's being read at the beginning of our podcasts, those actually do allude to the King of Red Lion and these, like, ancient deities working to try and restore some type of power or, like, prevent Ganon from getting his hands on Hyrule, even to this day, right? But it's all blocked to us. Like, we don't know that unless you've unlocked the game once and you get the text unlocked, or you look it up online, right? So again, it is mentioned time and time again. One of the parts, especially in the later half of the game when we're doing the 2 dungeons with the sages, is they're praying. They aren't just chilling in front of the ancient temples and playing the theme of the game. They are just chilling in the ancient temples playing the theme of the game, your Wind Waker theme, right? And I think that is important. They're not playing the themes of the dungeons that we learned, right? They're not playing this ancient lore. They're playing the and I really think that there is some merit, some narrative value to have these characters all over the Great Sea playing your song, the wind carrying your song, bringing faith, destroying the evil. It kind of exists. And I think had they played around with the mechanics of music, and again, we don't talk a lot about music in this podcast. Why? Because we listen to podcasts, we listen to other things, we're doing it in the background. But I think music plays a very important part in this game, right? And it's just part of the narrative that we lost, right? So having these characters continually play your theme, we should have done that. We should have talked to more musicians, more people that would have hummed and hawed. And as we kind of restore light and good to the world, maybe all of a sudden all the islands start carrying our theme, right? And it's we play our music and the wind carries our song, knowing that hope and peace and a greater future is coming. Yeah. Cool, great.
And I was just
what a great mechanic that's sitting right there that you just didn't
do anything.
You just didn't like show us. It's all subtext. It's all underlying.
Well,
go ahead.
Go on. I was just saying, and even the name of the game, Wind Waker, like. I just, like, I've never really kind of put 2 and 2 together until you were kind of talking about this. It's like, what is a waker? It's someone who awakes something that's sleeping. So this is the story of Link awakening the wind.
Yeah.
And you're like, that's the name of the game. And it should be like there's this song or this whatever is being swept along the winds. And it's like, this should be a way bigger part of this game where it's like you almost should be trying to bring this song or this music and this light or this wind or whatever to each areas, and that's what brings its life. Like there should almost be like no sound in an like in a like
Sure,
like all the places you visit should have no music,
or just
and after you accomplish stuff, then the music starts kicking up, and
even just a semblance of unorganized music, right? Like you get, and there's just wind chimes or something, right? And as you progress and bring balance and peace and organization, you conduct it so that it actually does play music or something. You can kind of pull all the elements together.
Yeah, or maybe it adds more, adds more instruments.
Yeah.
So instead of you're right, starts with just kind of some wind chimes or whatever, and then
make
it adds,
it dead and creepy and disjointed and have no rhythm, and you kind of pull everything together and you add balance and organization, and you get rid of some of the chaos in the land. Just saying, It was right there. They missed it.
Yeah.
But because it is so close, I do feel like it's one of those things that I kind of feel like that's the story they were trying to tell. You don't just accidentally put all these elements into your story without tying it together. Sure, you could put all these elements in the story and then you run out of time and you're like, we couldn't complete it, but whatever, we'll just move on. It's not that important.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And I feel like it's just I wish they just didn't rush this. Mm-hmm. They just had a little bit more time. They could have maybe flushed out a few of these ideas. Because you are right, those sages, it's here's 2 sages and they pray. That's it.
Yeah, that's odd.
It's such a random occurrence, but it's clearly intentional because it's this is what you're doing to progress the game. So it's part of the story. They just didn't really do enough with it.
Exactly.
To give it legs. So.
All right. And then finally, I think, so we're kind of on that same agreement that they've kind of missed out something. There is some kind of extra lore if you kind of dive through, dig in. We can get the overlay of the maps. And then finally, Ganon. Ganon is a very interesting character in this game because he does kind of have a bit more humanity. He adds more depth. I've written out all his text actually from the end of the adventure so we can kind of roll through it. It's not all super important, but as you kind of enter his final chambers, he stands over Zelda saying that he can see her sleep. He can look into this girl's dreams and he sees oceans as far as the eye can see. There are vast seas. None can swim across them. They yield no fish to catch. What did the king of Hyrule say? That the gods sealed Hyrule away from me and they left behind people who would one day awaken Hyrule? How ridiculous. So many pathetic creatures scattered across a handful of islands, drifting on the sea like fallen leaves on a forgotten pool. What could they possibly hope to achieve? Don't you see? All of you? The gods destroyed you. I've been waiting for you. Boy, for one like you, yes, for the hero. Don't betray my expectations. So even right there, in that text, we reveal that the Great Sea is useless. You don't get fish. You can't fish from the ocean.
Yep.
So why are these people staying in this area? I do think that there's some type of draw that the ancient kingdom of Hyrule has some appeal over these people of the Great Sea, right? And potentially with it being destroyed at the end of the game, they might dissipate, right? Realize there's no reason to kind of cling to this dream. But you're right. The gods kind of forsake their people, right? They forsook their people to try and stop Ganon, and this was the result, right? So it's I don't know. It's an interesting.
Yep.
Yeah.
No, it and this thought of Zelda's only dreaming of oceans, and that people want to awaken Hyrule. And it's if she's the representation of Hyrule, the only thing that she's awakening is more oceans. It's this area is dead. And that's kind of what Ganon's getting at. It's this entire area is screwed. It's you guys tried to hide it from me and now it's ruined.
Mm-hmm.
Is this really what you guys wanted? So it's interesting. It paints Ganon as not this black and white, oh, he's clearly the bad guy. He's well, look at what you guys look at what the goddesses has left you.
You thought I was evil. Look what happened. How did the goddesses treat you? Did they not treat you the same way as I did? Right. So why are they better? It's just two sides of the same coin. So he wants some sympathy. So in his next wall of text here, so he says, "You surely are the hero of time reborn. My country lay within a vast desert. When the sun rose in the sky, a burning wind." There it is again. "Punished my land, searing the world. And when the moon climbed in the dark of the night, a frigid gale pierced our homes. No matter when it came, the wind carried the same thing, death." So again, we're alluding to, we learned some sympathy, right? Why did Ganon want to take over Hyrule? because they had a favorable wind, right? So no matter when but the wind that blew across the green fields of Hyrule brought something other than suffering and ruin. I coveted that wind, I suppose. It could only be called fate that here I would again gather the 3 crests. Do not fear. I will not kill you. I merely have the power that dwells within you. Gods, hear that which I desire. Expose this land to the rays of sun once more. Let them burn forth. Give me Hyrule. So in that text, too, it doesn't seem like an evil king bent on destruction and pain. He was just trying to do right by his people, right? We see again, thematically, the wind brought up. The wind was his element living in Gerudo Desert. It made his life for his people very difficult, and all he wanted was just reduce their suffering, right? Now, by any means necessary, probably wasn't the best approach, right? But we kind of see that he maybe wasn't. I don't know. It adds just different a different element, a different layer to this it malevolent
his
evil.
Motivation.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you kind of
like if you came from a place where every day every day was a struggle, like the sun was up, it was hard. When it was night, it was freezing. It was never enjoyable. And there was this other place literally across on the other side of the mountains that was like beautiful and sunny and had all this like amazing things to it, and like they didn't fear getting up every day. They just got to enjoy their lives. And it's like, why does Ganon's people have to suffer every day when the people over there in Hyrule get this? And it's really him just being like, give me my land, give me a land where my people don't suffer. It's like, that's what he's wanting. He doesn't want to like, I'm not going to kill you. He's like, I just want the power inside of you.
That's a very powerful line. Like, I will
wrong.
not kill you. I'm not here just to be destructive. All I want to do is just try and regain which I think was mine, right? Let's remove this desolate, awful Great Sea, bring on the thriving kingdom that is Hyrule, and let's all live here together, right? And it almost does seem in this that, well, he's soliloquizing here at the end, that we might be even seeing a new Ganon, that he's not as evil. He's not looking to become the evil beast, right? Now, having the Triforce of Power does kind of lead to some corruption, so maybe you could say that he eventually will become evil again if we let him kind of carry on. But you do kind of see that there is a bit more autonomy, right? He isn't just this
100% evil
dark force. And again, listen to the text, right? The wind. He coveted the wind, right? The wind was evil. It's that illusion of wind again and again and again, right? Right up into the end. And I think this is really neat, really cool. And I wonder, was this supposed to be the end of Ganon as a threat in The Legend of Zelda?
Could be. Because, so, a couple things. It's interesting that he does, like, the Triforce of Power does corrupt. So in Ocarina of Time, like, you fight human form, and then he becomes true Ganon, and he's like this evil pig. Whereas in this one, it's like, there's this puppet of Ganon, and then there's just this guy. And it's almost like he's an older, matured Ganon, where he's not giving into that power.
Yeah.
Like, he's using that power. That's why he has a puppet Ganon and all these shadow Ganons. And it's like, he's not trying to manipulate himself. He's just trying to like influence and almost, and the whole like he was suffering from this wind, and there's some people that were like blessed by this wind. He was really just trying to bring like that balance of like sure, to the people of Hyrule, they're like having this like evil wind come in. They're like, oh, that's terrible. You represent bad, like evil things. But Ganon's like, he didn't represent that evil wind that came in. He was like, yeah, maybe kind of coincidentally came with it, but really he was just trying to bring his people away from kind of like from into salvation. So it's interesting because it's like, from what perspective is good and evil, and from what perspective is this balance of like, oh, there's this dark, and it's like, well, technically before he invaded Hyrule, there was this dark, but to the people of Hyrule, they were naive to it because it's on the other side of the mountain, and those people are suffering, but we aren't suffering, so it's light and happy here. So there's always like, even during the quote-unquote calm, relaxing time, it's like there was still conflict, there was still pain. It's like, so it's always present. And it's neat. And you're right. Like I could see where the older Ganon or the younger Ganon, who was like much more evil to give into power, was a much more like, here's the bad guy, whereas this Ganon was a lot more like understandable.
And I found, he's a bit more relatable, a bit more sympathetic, right? And it's just, again, interesting that at the end here he says, I do not want to kill you, right? That is not his intention. His intention is just to try and get Hyrule back. And you might say, well, that's an evil intention. But compared to the alternative, is it? Is maybe garnering some peace, right? The King of Red Lions, Ganon, stepping down and say, if Hyrule's back, let's divide up some territories, right? Let's share some wealth. Let's do things more amicably. I don't know. Tough to say, right? But it does seem kind of like this burying of Ganon. So it's a definitive end. He has a Master Sword in his head. He's buried under a great ocean. We'll never see Hyrule again. Well, based on the games that were released after this, Spirit Tracks, Phantom Hourglass, right? Even the beginning of Twilight Princess. Oh boy, when we get into that experience, it kind of feels like they're telling us a story derived of no Ganon in the world. Maybe there's some other threats in Twilight. And it isn't until kind of almost the end game when it's like, no, Ganon all along. It almost kind of just seems like as a crutch for the Nintendo game developers and storytellers at that point. They're like, well, we have to bring Ganon back. But this kind of seems like a definitive, what happens if Zelda did other stuff, right? What if he was drew some other inspirations, right? We always heard that they wanted to take Zelda into like a techno era where you could have technology. Sure, that could work, right? They could have played around with a lot of different genres, and this kind of seemed like them setting the tides on that ancient medieval Hyrule, right? The ones that we knew. And based on maybe the reception and fan backlash early on in this game, Nintendo might have panicked and pulled Ganon and fantasy back into like the Twilight Princess, which then kind of perpetrates the next games, because they all just kind of are the same after this. But I do think that they were ultimately going towards potentially, what if Link was played in different genres, right? Like, what if he played from different genres, from different areas and different backstories? And, we could theme a world of Animal Treasure Island. Put Link in it. Sure, there's lots of fun worlds out there. Link could have been doing a lot of cool stuff, right? But I think he kind of got sucked back into that fantasy, that high fantasy, especially in the next couple games. But this does seem like they're trying to do something different, a little divergent, and maybe it wasn't received as well as they thought, right? So, and that happens too with stories, right? People sometimes change. You're never sure where stuff's going.
Some people doesn't rub right with the story or whatever. But it's kind of like, it is interesting. It's almost like Ganon's kind of talking to the creators of the game, like of the gods that sealed Hyrule away, because you don't really play in Hyrule this game. It's kind of locked away underneath the ocean. There is no fish to catch because they didn't program any in there. Then you can't swim across the sea because you legitimately will just like get transported back to the land.
Yeah, exactly.
So and it's like, it's kind of like he's drawing attention. He's almost directly talking about the game that we were given, and it's almost like Ganon's almost talking to the player, being like, hey, maybe looking at things from my perspective and trying things differently would be interesting. It's
very much so, right? Yeah. No, and it's just one of those things. It's interesting to kind of go back and, I don't know, reflect upon these things kind of a little more critical eye. So in terms of the lore, I don't know. I don't think it's as straightforward as this. Retrospectively, you can go back and say like, oh, this was just the end of this story, and we better go when a story, a narrative gets to a point where they say, all right, we're done. What's the next story we're telling? Prequels. Prequels are fun. Usually a bad sign, right? Think of what happened with Star Wars, right? Original trilogy, absolutely one of the best things ever on God's green earth. Man, do I love you. And then we have to sit and justify. We're like, yeah, but like pod racing was fun, right? And we have to have a takes of, yeah, but like
the Darth Maul scene was fun.
That was neat. Typically, they're not that great. On the other side, you could go into the future and you're like, whoa, no, let's go back. Yeah. This is terrible. Let's just like hang out with Baby Yoda. Okay, yeah, cool. I can live in there. Yeah, I'm happy with that. Yeah, okay, cool.
Yeah.
So it doesn't have to be done, but the fact that we haven't seen a story past the Wind Waker kind of makes me feel like they weren't brave enough. Right, they weren't courageous enough as a development team, as a creators, as a company to push Zelda into kind of new areas. They just resorted by, let's go back in time and tell these stories. Right, it's like Game of Thrones. Well, what if we go back in time when there's lots of dragons? Yeah, but like I know what happens. You literally have a history book. I can just go look up the history book and be like, oh, okay, so that person dies here and then there. Like, I just don't think it's the best form of narrative storytelling when you start doing prequels, right? As we're kind of saw in like the Nintendo,
and even in Star Trek, where it's like there's actually like a point in Star Trek where like they just have refused to move forward in the timeline.
Yes,
when you're like, okay, but you're sci-fi, like move forward. And it's like there's this weird hesitancy in most genres and most media where we're so afraid to take that next step. We just want to see what we've gotten. Mm-hmm. We just want that same thing, and we fear something new and different and taking that next step on a journey. Whereas like it's almost kind of interesting that Zelda is like, this game is also almost aware of that and is trying to like plea to do, like, it does something. It's a very different game than any other Zelda game, but it's so locked into what it has to be that it almost can't be free to be the game that it wants to be. Mm-hmm. So it's like, but that's just like so common amongst so many different forms of media. And it's like, man, we are just like, we refuse to let go of this past, and we refuse to try like a new thing, where we are so happy to just be like, no, I want that same reliable thing, but it's never going to be as good as that first time that I played it. It's always just we're always like chasing our tails.
Yeah, it'll always be kind of different, and just right, like it's just a flawed experience. Like, we have to end today and just say like, oh, this was kind of an incomplete story. We have to pick together, and these are the fun conversations we get to have, right? Why did I not finish my notes today? Because I kind of felt like Nintendo didn't quite finish, and I wasn't really sure where this conversation was going to leave us. So I wanted to give us a little bit open-ended.
I liked just actually reviewing what Ganon said, because there's a lot of time where like we don't get a lot of story. So actually diving into like the nitty-gritty of the story.
I had to find like some fan translation text of the game, and it was just this giant PDF dump, and then like scroll through it until I found it wasn't in order. So finding that,
oh my gosh,
that was kind of challenging. Like, that wasn't the easiest thing in the world, right? So
yeah. No, it's the fans do the best work.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, awesome. So with that, like, unless you have something mind-blowing to say, I think we'll kind of leave it there. Again, we might return and talk about Wind Waker in the future, and if this is our last time talking about it, I'm okay with that, right? I think we did a fairly good job over these last couple episodes. It's not as big and epic and grand and complete as an Ocarina of Time, but I think it still deserved 4 episodes, and kind of go from there. Get into our next little mini-series of kind of an epic game series later this year, so...
Yes. I don't really know. I think we covered a lot of it.
Yeah.
And if we come back, I'm happy. If we don't come back, that's okay, because we'll probably mention something about this in Spirit Tracks, because that's kind of what happens next in the story.
So yeah, sure. Yeah.
Sure. So no matter what, we'll probably be visiting this link in Tetra again. So I think I just got to say James Bond, and I'm all good.
Awesome. Yeah, myself, I think we did a solid ourselves. And thanks for joining us on this adventure. We are back, I think, with a game next week. Probably talking about X-Men randomly. I don't know what's going on over there. Those crazy little X-Men in their little mansion. And at some point, the next series we're looking at is Final Fantasy IX. So if you are following right along, in about a month's time, depending kind of when this comes out, what other projects are, this summer we're playing Final Fantasy IX. So Wind Waker, Final Fantasy IX. Oh boy, it's going to be a good year here on the Podtendo podcast.
Absolutely. Going to be good. Look forward to it.
Awesome. So with that, we say goodbye and talk to you guys in a couple weeks, or maybe next week with, I don't know when this is coming out, and X-Men. So maybe you're hearing us all the time. How exciting.
Maybe.
Okay.
See you guys.
Yeah, bye.